The Oblivion remaster just did the impossible. I guess that's made Bethesda look good for at least 5 minutes, which is pretty impressive considering they have not done anything right in the last 15 or so years at this point, honestly. But you know what I care about? I want to hear the people who are playing the Oblivion remaster currently and they are using mods. What is your experience? Because Bethesda has decided to do the thing that it probably lasted maybe right once in the last 25 years or something, and that is patch the game, okay? And patching any Bethesda game by Bethesda themselves is pretty much always a bad thing. Again, I don't know when they last did a good patch for anything that they did, but if I had to guess, it would, unironically, I would say that was probably maybe 20, 25 years ago when they last did a good patch that people did not complain about. So, let's see.
Today we're sitting down to talk about Oblivion Remastered once more as I inch my way to that final verdict video. I know I said it'd be coming this week, but might have been a white lie. I'm reviewing something right now that we'll talk about shortly, but also we're pitching our game this week. So it's a really exciting time for our team, but because of that, I have been completely absorbed by preparing for that. So I apologize that I slacked a little bit on Oblivion Remaster, so I will make it up for you, hopefully.
So, if you don't know, by the way, Maddie has a game coming up, and I'm really, really worried because it's supposed to be his game, kinda isk. He's supposed to be a big deal there. But you can't really make these YouTube videos and do a game at the same time because, making a YouTube video probably seems like something that just takes on average 30 minutes. Even these reacts take more than 30 minutes, sadly. I wish they took literally no time to make. And, then I didn't have to do thumbnails and shit like that. And he does even more than that. So, how are you a CEO of a game or something like that and do YouTube at the same time? That does not sound good, honestly. But I hope it actually succeeds. Whatever game he's making, I hope it's good.
Next week. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, this Oblivion Remastered video is focusing on the incredibly obvious thing. We all knew what was going to happen, except for Bethesda, who refused to do this type of game for years and years and years. And I'm so happy people are putting their money where their mouths have been for like over a decade with these remasters, because maybe Bethesda will go, oh shit, oh, they want to buy that, guys. Wow. Did anyone else in this room expect that they would buy the Oblivion remaster? I mean, who else has been begging for it forever? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Today, we're going through two things.
Again, Boromir would have bought the Morrowind remaster.
We're going through the stats, the data, just how well is Oblivion Remastered selling. We're going to talk about that. In turn, we're going to talk about the aftermath and what it means beyond the very obvious Fallout 3 remaster, but also the future of Bethesda's catalog and what Mr. Todd Howard told me, which just may have been a little bit of a white lie. Got fooled in real time. We'll talk about that. Plus, we're talking about Virtuos.
Todd Howard lying. Woo! Now that is something I did not expect to hear in my life.
Taking suggestions for Oblivion Remastered and what that can mean for future support of the game. Because I think with this type of money, this many copies out there in the wild, Game Pass, I think there's a world where they do like actual support for Oblivion Remastered. So we'll talk about that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here and you're into what's going on with Bethesda, consider subscribing. Okay, let's start off with the data. Matt Piscatella of Circana writes, after just 1 week in the market, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered is already the third best-selling game of 2025 in the United States in the terms of money sales, trailing only Monster Hunter Wilds and Assassin's Creed Shadows. It was the best-selling game of the week. For reference.
Wait, best-selling game of the week? Wait. Doesn't have... week. Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
It was the best...
But to be fair, what else has actually came out in 2025, right? Yeah, I think everything else that was big came out last year. So this year is still right. So it actually makes sense that Assassin's Creed Shadows, with its probably 700k sales or 800k sales, if we're lucky, it still makes the top charts. Monster Hunter Wilds is undoubtedly the absolute king currently. And yeah, Oblivion does make sales, and Clair Obscur is probably like fourth or fifth, maybe. Who knows?
Selling game of the week. For reference, Monster Hunter Wilds has already sold a whopping 10 million copies in a month. And for Assassin's Creed Shadows, it was selling over 2 million with over 3 million players, and with Oblivion
Wait. Did we actually have a confirmation that this Assassin's Creed Shadows sell 2 million copies? We had 1 million players, then we had 3 million players, and at this point, I don't think that has been a 4 million player announcement even. So, again, everything involving Assassin's Creed Shadows, I am very, very hesitant to believe any good news about it.
Remastered, the only actual number we got was 4 million players. Now, these stats do include digital sales as well for Microsoft. It's digital across the eShops, Steam, Xbox, all of those are included as well, which sometimes metrics aren't included like that. So what you've got here is an amazing top-of-the-year seller already from Bethesda Game Studios, which speaks to multiple things. One is the pull Elder Scrolls still has to this day, because, again, with no Elder Scrolls entry since Skyrim, the people were hungry. And the one tactic that Todd Howard has in his back pocket that he talks a lot about, but I don't think we acknowledge enough, because it's...
I mean, we all knew that this is a thing, by the way. There's a reason we were all super excited about Avowed before it shit the bed, right? There's a reason Tainted Grail is so exciting and whatnot. It's because we don't have these kind of Skyrim-esque, and I'm not even talking about Skyrim-esque, we literally just don't have enough open-world, middle-age fantasy games where you can choose whatever type of stuff you want to level and do things like that with it. We don't have those things. We don't. The market is completely drained of them. And, you know, that's why things like Avowed and Tainted Grail have so much pull currently. Well, Avowed's dead, but you get the point. That's why these things have so much hype behind them, because we have nothing. Like, Dragon Age Belgard technically was almost in that genre, even, again, almost. It's not even cutting it, honestly. Yeah, people want this type of stuff, but no one's giving us that type of stuff.
Right, very often, if it sucks for us as fans, is there is a truth to missing something for a long time drives Bethesda sales crazy. You missed Oblivion, and look what's happening, right? And what's going to continue to happen. This game's not going to slow down anytime soon. It is going to be probably within the top 10 by the end of this year. And that's incredible for a remake/remaster. That's an interesting part of the conversation too, though, is what Bethesda has told many of us, myself included. Remember when I sat down to interview Todd Howard? One of the best moments of my life. I didn't know I was getting a white lie fed to me when I asked about like remasters of, say, Fallout or Elder Scrolls, and he's like, no, we're not really focusing
on... No. Todd Howard probably didn't know shit about this. Okay? This was where at the early parts. This was at the early parts where Microsoft just actually pretty much effectively bought Bethesda. They were still in the middle of changing key figures that do what in Bethesda, and, you know, a lot of things like that. And at that time, Microsoft thought that buying Bethesda and Activision Blizzard were good choices. And now, well, admittedly, now at least Bethesda is doing something with the remakes popularity, and the TV show was a success. But before that, Microsoft thought that they're buying good investments, but they were ripping their hair out because of how poorly they performed, okay? You buy these two studios, you think you're fucking getting a money printing gold machine. That's why they paid $880 billion for these things specifically. And then Bethesda launches Starfield. Yeah. And Microsoft is like, let's go. And yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. And then Microsoft is like, what did we buy? And then Blizzard literally dies 5 places over again, okay? Marvel Rivals comes out, slaps Blizzard in the ballsack. World of Warcraft is becoming so goddamn irrelevant that people don't even care to shit about it. You know, they don't even care to talk poorly about it because it's just so bad. Another dangly slap, okay? And then you obviously have Diablo 4, which is like multiple slaps across the jewels. Microsoft was not happy, okay? So, none of this was in the cards. None of these remakes, none of anything was in the cards, but Microsoft understood that these people don't know what the fuck they're doing. Todd Howard is a con man. And, well, they pretty much forced Bethesda to do the Fallout TV series and the remaster. Todd didn't want to do any of these things. It was all Microsoft that forced him to do it.
On that. And at the end of the day, I'm sitting there knowing the FTC document exists. I'm like, okay, bro, whatever. I know you're full of it, but you know, it's one of those tough spots in an interview where like, is he actually going to tell me, oh yeah, we're actually working on Oblivion Remastered. But one thing Bethesda has been so persistent about is that when it comes to remasters, they're pretty much never going to claim it as a remake, even if Oblivion Remastered has a lot of remake elements to it, particularly in the visuals. Even in their launch letter here, they say literally word for word, we never wanted to remake it, but remaster it, where the original game was there as you remember playing it, but seen through today's technology. And that is going to be the standard for whatever you see in the terms of remasters from Bethesda moving forward, whether it's Fallout 3.
Oh, actually, I should probably explain one thing a little bit more because of the leaked document, because it technically has a remastered and shit on it. Let me explain how those things work in business, okay? That is called a business plan for the future, the vast future. You can do them for a year, you can do them for 2 years, you can do them for 4 years, you can do them for whatever the fuck long you want. And in a lot of cases with investors, the longer you make it out, the better it is. But the reality is, you're not really looking at anything past a year in relevance. This is why all the dates are wrong. Because they literally just put in things for the future, like 2-3 years from that they could do if they actually want to do, because they have access to it. Just so it looks good. So all the remakes, all the things that were on this, in a lot of cases were just fluff. They were just fluff.
Skyrim. It's going to happen. I'm telling you all, it's going to happen. That's an easy one for them to do. Even maybe I would say Morrowind, if you want to go deeper. That might necessitate more of a remake, in my opinion, but you know, let them cross that bridge when they get there. Still, this is a no-brainer, right? Everyone who's a fan of Bethesda knew this would print money for them. It's why when I covered things like the Fallout New Vegas remaster or the Fallout 3 remaster, I literally said people would line up to buy it full price. Now, Bethesda, being smart, was like, oh, more people will line up to buy it full price if we put it below the price that people were expecting it to be, which in the case of Oblivion was over-delivering in a lot of areas and then was asking for 50 from you. Worked out really well for them where they could have easily charged, I think, 70, and with the nostalgia, the hype, the zero wait, it was all there, perfectly done, where people just would have sprung on it regardless. So we already know Fallout 3 Remaster is on the way. That was on the FTC document that's been proven to be accurate multiple times. The insiders who have been behind a lot of the Oblivion leaks have said that Fallout 3 is coming, so we know it's happening next, and I just hope this does spur on New Vegas. I do hope this spurs on, I'm sorry, I'll say it, I hope it spurs on Skyrim. Like, I will take Skyrim again.
Odd and remaking New Vegas. Again, the guy's probably gonna find a way to end humanity before he allows that to happen.
I hope this spurs on Morrowind as well. I would love to try Morrowind with the way Bethesda's described it here. Like, we're not...
That's fast travel, by the way.
Not going to remake it, but we're going to remaster it. It's like, well, what does that look like? Because Morrowind is a really high bar to cross in the terms of like entry level. How do you make that a little bit more accessible? And I think the answer is, if you want to retain the original spirit of that game, you can't. Because let's say you make like, oh, when you swing your weapon, you hit an enemy, it's like, okay, well, if they take that away, you just ruin the whole skill system of the game. You just can't do that. So what does Bethesda do other than re-release it and make it a little more pretty and keep it as hardcore as it was? I think that would be awesome. But I hope this does open their eyes to, like, it doesn't stop at Fallout 3, that they keep going beyond that more and more and more. And especially, I think, on that list, New Vegas better get that treatment, man. Imagine New Vegas looking like what we're seeing with Oblivion Remastered. That'd be incredible. Now, speaking of a world where Bethesda's taking suggestions, we've got some for them, no? And they're asking for it. PC Gamer covered how Bethesda is calling on players to suggest or at least where developer Virtuos goes from here. In a channel on its Discord called Oblivion Suggestions, players are pouring in with ideas, beliefs, opinions, and notions. And so this is where people get a little carried away. Like, some folks are calling for some seriously
Bethesda has Discord? I can already smell it from here. Oh, that's rancid.
high-level tasks, like completely redoing the entirety of the leveling system for Oblivion, which I think if Bethesda wanted to do that, they would have held off on releasing this and squeezed that into the final product. I think other things that people are asking for, like massive quest lines, are kind of ridiculous, but it's the type of ridiculousness I can get down for. I think if we're looking into the future, how Bethesda does their thing, right? They usually add creations to their games. Right now, there's no official mod support. People are still modding it.
Oh god, no, not the creation bullshit. Bethesda already showed us what creations are with Starfield. And that is literally paying $20 for a 30-minute fucking quest. That is what creations is. Actually, it's a little bit cheaper, but it's, you know, paying $10 or $20 for a 30-minute quest, where at the end you get a weapon that's bugged and cannot be reloaded, so it's worthless. It's and by the way, you gaslight people into buying it because the first part is free of the quest, and that's the good part, and the second part is trash, and you have to buy that. Yeah, no, thank you. No, creations sound horrible. It sounds big suck.
And anyway, but there's no official mod support, and I know Bethesda well enough to know they're going to want to turn this into a platform. This is the new home for Oblivion because it respects the original so much that many of the old school Oblivion fans have been like, yeah, you know what? This is where I'm always going to go to come back to play Oblivion year in, year out. So with that in mind, Bethesda would be silly to not, with a modernized version of one of their most popular games, try to find a way to put creations in there. And why is that important? Because that's money for them, but that's also limitless replayability for those of you out there who don't have a PC and can't mod, ignoring all of the hurdles they have to get over to make modding even a reality. If they somehow could do that, let's just throw out there things they could change. I think a set of difficulty sliders similar to what Starfield has, where it affects XP gains, would be fantastic.
Difficulty sliders are bad. This is like an excuse because Bethesda can't really balance anything out. Starfield's combat is effectively like this. You either kill anything with one shot, or it's a mob with 3 HP bars and you need to waste, you know, a full clip of late game, end game ammo to kill it, and it really doesn't fight back because it's constantly stun locked. This is pretty bad. This is kind of bad. Bethesda just doesn't know how to balance difficulty. That's kind of like the thing here.
Fantastic. I would be really happy with that. I think Starfield figures something out there, and it would work really well in something like Oblivion, where, you know, when you get past that like level 10 to 15 area, and the game just starts to scale with you a little bit more, and you're always like tweaking your difficulty slider. I think this would be something that would be nice to have, where you can like change how much damage you do, how much damage the enemy does to you, how much XP you get out of that situation, that sort of thing. I think that sort of Starfield difficulty system would work. It would be really at home here in Oblivion, where it feels most necessary.
Now, to be honest, to be fair, I mean, that system would be kind of not bad, but again, the system exists because Bethesda is trash. That's how it actually works.
Where Starfield felt fine to me. I think it just allowed you to customize the gameplay experience a little bit more and have more fun with it in certain areas. Like for me, sometimes Starfield felt a little off with some of its Starship encounters, or you'd get caught in an autosave loop and be like...
The Starship encounters are shit. You know why? Because they don't actually scale with you, okay? You can be level 50 and you can go into space and find a fight, and oh, the enemy is level 50, but your ship is completely separate scaling from everything else you do. So, fuck you, I guess.
Like, dang, I really need to take out all these ships. I guess I'm just going to maximize damage and for myself and minimize theirs. So yeah, I think difficulty comes to mind immediately. Definitely performance work, definitely patch work on that front would be a huge one, in my opinion. This is something that should have been done right away, but I think because they did so much right, people are giving them grace in this process. But I would love for them to continue to patch the game up in that front. But my crazy thing, right? My crazy thing that I have written down here for future updates is actually to go out and do new DLC for Oblivion. I think if there's something crazier than a weird remake, remaster hybrid for Oblivion in 2025, it's that like in 20.
God, imagine they do an Oblivion DLC, and it's by everyone's favorite Emile Puglerulo, or whatever his dumb name is, and everyone's having fun with the Oblivion remake, and then they go into DLC, and it's Emile's wonderful, amazing, completely genuine writing, and everyone just like, oh fuck, I don't like this game anymore, and why does it feel so shit all of a sudden? Why is it so boring, dull, predictable, and stupid? That's because it's Emile.
2026, it actually starts getting new stories, official news stories. One of the interesting things that Bethesda went ahead and did alongside Virtuos for this project was adding in new voice actors, showing that things under the hood that may have thought to be...
Again, the only thing that Bethesda added to this game before the release from themselves was body type A, body type B, okay? And people hated it. Again, if Bethesda wants to ruin the Oblivion remaster, go ahead. I know Todd Howard probably wants to ruin it because he wants an excuse to say, oh, look at that, we're not trash, you know? This old game, actually, people didn't like it as much as we thought.
Stamped down can be added in. The deluxe edition added new items to the game. It added a new quest to the game. These things can happen, right? So if all this can happen, we don't know how difficult it is to do, but if these things can happen, where you can put new stuff into the game, what is stopping them from going...
By the way, the fact that they actually sold a new quest, which is the scummiest thing ever, if you pre-ordered it, that's just wrong. And two, I have not heard anyone talk about the quest. I have not. Like, no one has said anything about the quest.
This far. Tell me. Because if you have one of the most popular games on the market right now, and you know Bethesda Game Studios, what's stopping them from re-engaging with that loop? How crazy would it be to get your first new expansion, or I'll just chill out with that, DLC for Oblivion since Shivering Isle? What would stop them from doing that? If you're a business, it makes sense because Bethesda is literally outsourcing all this work beyond their own castle walls. They're not doing a lot of this heavy lifting. It's on Virtuos supporting all of this. And given the money they're making on this, continuing that operation makes sense. Now, there's other ways they're continuing that operation. Fallout 3, but I would be singing a similar tune there. If Fallout 3, when Fallout 3 sees similar numbers to this, I'm going to be saying the same thing. Why not add another expansion?
I wonder if Fallout 3 is going to be bigger or smaller than Oblivion. I'm kind of leaning on... Fallout 3 was the first thing that got Bethesda on the map, theoretically, in that larger sense, okay? So, oh man, it's so hard to tell if Fallout 3 is going to have more or less players than this.
Why not add another DLC? I know it's very pie in the sky. There's more realistic things to tackle, like I've previously mentioned. But when I'm looking at just how big this has become, how much money they have to play with, I think to myself, why not carry it an extra step?
Oh, look at that. The lusty Argonian maid.
They already kind of did the unthinkable on how they released it. But to me, what's even more unthinkable is like, we're dropping a massive expansion next year for this thing. Again, I know it sounds crazy, but like that's the type of ballpark I'm in right now. It's like, why not? Oblivion's alive again. Why not? Like, how insane would that be? The other thing is Bethesda kind of set this new standard for how remasters can be handled. The lack of a wait, the way hype builds up, the pricing it was at, and you throw in there as well just how it has remake qualities in certain areas. Why not reinvent the game again? Like, hey, the last remaster I played that got new DLC, like anything's possible after this thing, was Kingdoms of Amalur: Re-Reckoning. This is a game I covered a lot on.
Holy shit, I played this game. It was incredibly bad and I hated it. I disliked it a lot. It was boring as fuck.
On the channel, they managed to get the game out from under EA at THQ Nordic, remaster this thing. That was already crazy enough. I was just hyped to have the game back. That was crazy enough. But then all of a sudden, here comes a DLC for it, like an actual brand new DLC for it. And they only did one, but it was one of the coolest things I ever experienced, because I remember playing the game a ton at launch, loving it, playing the remaster a ton at its launch, loving it, and then them going, yeah, we're actually going to add new DLC in. That was crazy to me. And I don't think it got nearly enough attention like it should have when it happened, because I was like, what other game has really done this, where they've just continued to give the game new life after its remaster, outside of Re-Reckoning? So I hope Bethesda, with a much bigger audience, and in the terms of sales, but also just eyes on their products, considers this sort of future support. I think it would be awesome. Equally awesome would be fixing the combat AI. But that's it. That's what's going on. So Oblivion Remastered, doing extremely well in the market. No doubt we're going to get more.
Fallout New Vegas. That's what I cared about, honestly. But whatever. That was Mr. Matty Plays 10 out of 10. Bye.